Welcome to August the 13th. I'll start from 2017, work back to 2014, and take it from there. Some things should not happen, but they do. The Red Shirt Brigade looks like costing the Australian Labor Party a lot of senior members of Parliament as soon as the courts decide on the facts. That should be of great concern to the Victorian Branch of the Australian Labor Party and Dan Andrews. The allegation being that volunteers were paid well and acted outside their jurisdiction, a criminal offence for any parliamentary member knowingly paying so. It is like the hypothetical member for Dandenong Valley paying volunteers $48 an hour to campaign in Frankstown, as well as Dandenong Valley. It is okay for the member for Dandenong Valley to pay for work in Dandenong Valley, but he must not call his employees volunteers when they are not, and they are not allowed to then campaign in Frankstown. It might appear a small criminal offence to some, but it is corruption. And where does it end? Bill Shorten is in trouble over what he knew regarding Julia Gillard's slush fund involving the AWU. Allegedly, he was told all and then instructed the person telling him to shut up. And then that person was threatened. Shorten's links to GetUp are concerning too, as he'd probably fall foul of the same issues regarding the Red Shirt Brigade, which looks like eliminating the ALP from Victoria. Victoria might not need wait until 2018 to form a Matthew Guy Liberal government if the rump of the ALP gets booted for corruption, and a court's findings is due to be tabled this Friday. On this day, in 29 BC, Octavian held the first of 3 consecutive triumphs in Rome. The Roman Senate had ordered the closure of the Temple of Janus, signifying Rome was not at war for the first time in over 200 years. This pleased Octavian, who had had success against Antony the year before, and was working hard to raise the name of the Roman Republic, while also acquiring the power of a dictator. Octavian had little choice but retained the dictatorial powers. Many would have killed him to claim powers of their own. The previous year, 30 BC, had seen Gaius Cornelius Gallus quell an uprising in Egypt and set up monuments of himself within months. The monuments had outlasted the future exile. In 554, Justinian I was so impressed with his public servant Liberius, he reorganized Italy to give him extensive land. Liberius shares having had civil responsibility for Italy, Gaul, and Egypt with Caesar and Napoleon. Some people called him the gangster of love, but in 582, Maurice became Byzantine emperor. He was successful in facing off Persia, so that Byzantium no longer needed to pay tribute to its reign. In 900, a petty squabble between a person who was not Duke of Lorraine, Count Reginald I of Hainault, was solved when he killed the bastard son of Carolingian Emperor Arnulf of Carinthia, Zwenitobold of Lotharingia. In 1521, Cortés' long siege of Tenochtitlan was successful. In 1532, Brittany became part of France, but the language of the peasants remained, so that by 1780, only 20% of France spoke French. In 1536, in Kyoto, Buddhist monks set fire to 21 temples, what became known as the Tenbun Hokkei disturbance. Michael Servetus was a polymath cartographer, theologian, physician, and translator. He was the first to correctly describe the operation of the pulmonary arterial system. He was also denounced by both Catholics and Protestants, and in 1553 was arrested as a heretic by order of Calvin and later burned at the stake. Today, Servetus's work would not be out of place in a theological school. In 1642, Louis XIII of France appointed Cardinal Richelieu as Prime Minister, and Richelieu began brilliantly centralizing power away from the feudal system that was inherited, presaging Louis XIV. Before Germany unified, her states feuded, and in 1704 Bavaria squared off against Prussia and lost. Only they had allied themselves with common enemies. Bavaria with France faced off against Prussia with a grand alliance of England, Holy Roman Empire, and Dutch Republic. Louis XIV had a successful previous year in the War of Spanish Succession, but the Battle of Blenheim that reversed. Blenheim saw the rare example of a weaker force attacking a defended position, and through a mixture of daring, good timing, and general competence and collegial confidence in the Grand Alliance, had a stunning win, an amazing victory for Winston Churchill's ancestor. In 1779, the Royal Navy humiliated the U.S. Navy's Penobscot expedition, which had set sail with the intent of preventing England from renaming Maine as New England. The expedition wasn't successful, but Maine kept her name, ultimately. In 1792, King Louis XVI of France was arrested and declared an enemy of the people. In 1831, Nat Turner saw a solar eclipse and decided it was a sign from God. He enlisted some 70 slaves to kill white people, of which 55 were victims in Southampton Courts, Virginia. In 1898, a mock battle for Manila was held between the U.S. and Spain, with Spain surrendering to prevent Manila from falling to Philippine guerrillas. In 1906, an Asada-type investigation was held into the shooting death of a barman and a police officer. A black army unit was blamed, and fabricated evidence from the local white townsfolk was given. The entire unit, 167 soldiers, was discharged dishonorably despite exculpatory evidence in the early 1970s. The unit was expunged of the charge, but no compensation was ever paid. In 1913, Harry Brearley began producing stainless steel in the UK. In 1918, the U.S. Army began enlisting women. Also in 1918, BMW was established in Germany. In 1920, Poland defeated the Soviets in the Battle of Warsaw, starting on this day and finishing August the 25th. In 1937, the Battle of Shanghai began. In 1942, the Manhattan Project's construction facilities were authorized. Also in 1942, Bambi was released by Disney. In 1961, East Germany closed her borders. In 1977, rioting by a group of people who would later form the EDL resulted in 214 arrests and 111 injuries. In 1978, 150 Palestinians were killed in Lebanon. In 2004, 156 Tutsi were killed in a refugee camp in Burundi. In 2008, Russian units occupied George and Gori. In 2010, 492 Sri Lankan Tamils docked in British Columbia on this day.